Hello, church. Please turn in your Bibles to Colossians chapter 1. We're going to look at verse 15 through 20 today. I want to very briefly just summarize what Paul has said in the first parts of this book, Colossians. He starts out that he is encouraged by the hope and the faith and the love that has been reported to him. And we learn that hope is the seed that was planted in the Colossians. And they were going through difficult times throughout the world in this time under some pretty brutal Roman rule. And faith and love were still the fruits of that amazing hope. And that hope was not just for now. That hope was also for an amazing future inheritance. He says, though, that that's not the only thing that you need to be continuing in. This faith is not just a one-time thing that now I have it and now I can sit back. And no, he says, no, keep growing in the knowledge of God. And that comes out in many, many different ways. It comes out in bearing fruit in good works. It comes out in continued growth and strengthening and endurance and patience and thanksgiving. These are the fruits of that amazing hope that we have. And that is actually for right now. So I encouraged you last week, keep going and keep growing. I think that would be the message. But one of the things that it says is keep growing in the knowledge of God. And Paul goes into a poem which is really beautiful, and it shows us how we keep growing and in whom we keep growing. And this is what he goes into in this poem, starting at verse 15. He says, "The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross." I read one commentary this week that compared Jesus to a mirror. Now, one of the places that we lived early on in our marriage, there was a mirror in the hallway. And when we were lying in bed, we could actually look through that mirror and we could see a window that was in our dining room area. And so if I was at the window, I could actually look straight into my bedroom. And what do you know, one evening we were lying in bed and I looked through the mirror, and sure enough, there were two sets of eyes peering in. It was a little bit creepy. It was a couple of my students from school that wanted to scare us. Nothing crazy going on. They just wanted to scare us, and it was a little bit scary. It was a little bit strange, but they weren't actually looking straight at us. They were looking through the mirror and then seeing us, and that's what the commentary said, is that Jesus is this mirror. When we want to see God, we actually look through the mirror of Jesus. Jesus shows us God. And that is how we grow in the knowledge of God, is we get to know his Son. We get to know the Messiah. We get to know this Son that is the image of the invisible God. And that is a beautiful way of describing it. He then goes through many different reasons why he has supremacy over all things. He talks about creation, and then later on he talks about new creation. And I love that. It says, for in him all things were created. In him all things were created. Things in heaven and on earth, visible, invisible. He has this list of all the things that were created through him. And it was also created through him and for him. So we are given the gift of life for him, for his benefit, for his glory. He's before all things, and in him all things are held together. That's amazing. that take Christ out of the picture, and it all falls apart. And now, so there's the first part that describes who Christ is, and then it also describes then, or who he was and who he has been from the beginning, and then it goes into what his coming to earth means for all of us. And this is what it says: "For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross." And so Christ came and he reconciled to God all things. He came to make new creation. He came to make peace through his blood shed on the cross. And so you see some balances here. Christ, all things were created through him, and now actually we, the church, are the new creation through him. He is the beginning and the end. He's going to be there. He's the Alpha and the Omega, as Revelation talks about. He is the firstborn of all creation. He was there before, and he's actually the firstborn of the new creation. He's the firstborn from among the dead. He is the first one that went to the grave, but then raised up again to new creation. Jesus has supremacy over all of that. And so, who better to look to for the knowledge of God than Jesus Christ? Jesus came. He showed us God. He was like a mirror that showed us God. And when we look to him, we also see God. And that is the foundation of this pursuit of Christ, this pursuit of the knowledge of God. And throughout Colossians, that becomes a major theme. And so when Paul says grow in the knowledge of God, he is saying grow in knowledge of Christ, grow in Christ, grow in him, and in him will come up over and over and over. And that is who God chose to make his fullness dwell in him and come to our fallen planet to show us himself and reveal himself to us. He will continue to reveal himself to us as long as we continue to be in him. God bless you. Keep going and keep growing.